So I'd like to start with a little context for the audience. So can you share the path that led you to becoming a restaurateur?
Yeah, sure. Um, Definitely didn't have plans on doing it when I was young. Probably would have lost a bet from you if you would have said, are you going to be in the restaurant business when you grow up? I mean, like any kid, my first couple of jobs were in restaurants and unskilled labor. But my background is finance. From the time I was a young adult, I wanted to pursue finance and really be on Wall Street, so to speak, or do things in investment banking or financial services. I hadn't decided yet. And so as I started to pursue my passion of finance and go to college, I got introduced to Capriotti's from my best friend who I lived with. And he stopped me at the door one day when I was coming home and he said, "Hey man, have you ever tried this place called Capriotti's? I tried it today. It's absolutely fantastic." And, he knew I'm a lover of sandwiches and said, "You got to go try it." And so a couple of days later, he stopped me again and was like, "Hey, did you go eat this place?" I go, "No, man, I went to school and I went to work. Like, I'll get there." And so he's like, "I've eaten this sandwich 4 days in a row. I'm taking you there." And so he literally grabbed me. Yeah, he grabbed me, he's like, "We're going." And so we went and, he had been introduced to a sandwich that was on the menu called the Bobby, which
Yeah.
was homemade turkey, homemade stuffing, cranberry sauce, and mayonnaise. And so it was like Thanksgiving in a sandwich. And he's like, "You got to try this thing." And I looked at it and said, "Mayonnaise and cranberry sauce and stuffing on a sandwich, I'm out. I'm getting the cheesesteak." And so, like, under protest, he and I had this like healthy debate about, what to get. And so I got this cheesesteak, and I'm a huge lover of cheesesteaks, would eat them anytime I'd see them on a menu. And when I took a bite of this cheesesteak, it was literally the best I'd ever had in my life. And it wasn't even close. And I immediately fell in love with the product. And so he and I, he was in love with the Bobby, I was in love with this cheesesteak, and it quickly created a passion for me in having a new, sandwich shop that I could go to. And so as a creature of habit, I went 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 times and I got my way through the whole menu. And there really wasn't a sandwich on the menu that wasn't amazing and that I.
Let's burn some cash. Sure. Can we pause there for just a second? So the reason I want to pause is this. I mean, especially with your background, right? Being in finance. Like one of the things that you were taught that you were trained to do is figure out whether a company is investable or not. Right. And when you're buying a franchise, you're investing in a brand. Sandwich is not a moat, right? And Capriotti's at the time wasn't large enough that you would say, "Oh my goodness, it's not like buying a national Subway franchise," right? Like it's not like there was this name recognition globally. So in your mind, as a young person, I'm sure that there's excitement and enthusiasm for the sandwich. I'm sure when you and your buddy looked at each other, you weren't like, "I'm sure everyone will eat these sandwiches 5 times a week like we do." What did you think was investable about the brand? Okay. And so now we're older, right? We're no longer in our 20s. So when you look back at that, and like obviously that was a solid investment for you, Ashley. Um, why was it? What do you think, like before you ended up buying the brand outright, but as a franchisee, what did make it investable and what made the brand work for you that you were able to scale up as an individual franchisee? What did they have in place? And then what value were you able to add? Whoa, 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 whoa. Like how? Like what did you do? Like everybody listening is like, "What are you doing this weekend? Can you come look at my business?" What did you, right? You're like, I took a 3-day weekend and I put it together and then it was profitable, right? That statistic that just came out, 41% of all restaurants break even or lose money in the United States. What did you do? Sure. Now, did you have the top line in place then? I mean, I'm assuming you did, right? If you were able to turn it around, you guys were making good money, you were just spending it. And you could have probably stopped there or grown incrementally, and then it would have just been passive income because you had a full time job. But you decided to buy the franchise. Ironically, like a few months before the crash of 2008. Um, right. Right. I mean, who knew? Who knew? I can remember sitting with my business partners January 1st of 2020, saying like, "This is going to be our year." So like, you never know what's around the corner. There were gifts that came out of the pandemic as it relates to, operations and repositioning the industry. And I think the same is true of the 2008 financial crisis. Um, you bought the franchise and now you own it outright. What did you learn through that crisis that probably benefited you in the long term? And what do you, so this story could have gone a very different direction, right? And that's typically the way it goes, right? Two best friends who don't know shit about shit decide to get into an industry they know nothing about because they like to eat food too. We've seen this thousands of times, tens of thousands of times, and it doesn't work out well, but it worked out well for you. And you were able to do it without diving into the business, right? Oh, I'll cover the dishwasher today. Um, why? I mean, have you and Jason thought about why, when like this is such a common narrative that works out so poorly, why it worked out well for you? It's as I was preparing for this interview, yeah, I was thinking about a conversation I had with a new client recently. Because the one thing I want to highlight, which is actually the thing I think that you bought when you bought the initial franchise, is product market fit. There's this great marketing quote that says, product market fit is like stepping on a landmine. I talk to people all the time, and I say, well, have you achieved product market fit? And they're like, I think so. And I'm like, then you haven't, because you look at like Howlin' Raised in Los Angeles. It's like 12 years in, and they still have a line out the door every day of the week, 7 days a week, right? Like that is product market fit. It is undeniable. You never have to wonder whether you have it or not. I think that one of the reasons that you had the grace to make so many mistakes is because you had this seamless product market fit. The client that I was speaking with recently, she's in this place that I think a lot of people find themselves, where she's middling. And she's middling because she almost has product market fit. She's close, right? But she's not all the way there. And until you have that seamless product market fit, it's like pushing against the current. Would you agree with that? Sure. It is tough. And I think, one of the things that the restaurant industry does when you spend enough time in it is it kind of ruins restaurants for you, because when you walk into a restaurant, you see it differently. And like once you've seen something, it's really hard to unsee it. So I would assume that you, like so many of us, you patronize a ton of independent restaurants. And we're going to get into Wing Zone and how, you acquired and scaled that up as well. But you have this amazing worldview, right? And it's super broad because, you've had access to so many franchisees and so many markets. Um, what are the things that you think are the greatest hurdles for independence that you see them struggling with that they might not see themselves? Sure. Okay, but that's half the story. I think that you get a toast point of sale, you get a ton of data. Don't you think that the bigger hurdle is knowing what to do with the data? What are you doing with the data once you know where people get their nails done and all of this through the credit card data? What are you doing with it to build a deeper relationship with these people? How do you think you're leveraging and monetizing the data better than the next guy? Sure. Let's talk about Wing Zone. So, as an outsider, you can look at that and you could say that that was an opportunity or that was a distraction. And I would think that for you guys, once you had reached a certain level of success, like there were a bunch of opportunities. I'm sure that maybe you sought out Wing Zone, but I'm sure that there were a million Wing Zones out there that were reaching out to you saying, hey, what do you think? Um, when did you know you were ready to grow outside the brand, and what benefits did you see in growing outside the brand relative to just continuing to grow the thing that you knew worked? Sure. No worries. What I was asking was, and what did you learn through the process? When I went from nightlife into fine dining into fast casual, every time I made the transition, like I knew absolutely without a doubt that there would be all of these transferable skills that I had acquired along the way, only to discover, sadly, that there were few, that it was always starting at zero. Was Wing Zone starting at zero? What was transferable? And then what did you learn through that process they make Capriotti's better. Right, for sure. Right. As you know, and at the beginning of it was you and Jason probably sitting there smoking cigars going, how hard could this possibly be? Right. Knowing it would be different. Yeah. Let's talk about Jason for a minute. So like, you guys started as best friends and you've been partners for a really long time now. Most partnerships don't last this long statistically. Um, and the fact that you've been able to maintain a partnership and a friendship, I would assume. The other thing is this, man, like who I was in my early 20s is certainly not who I am in my mid 40s. And so either you grow together or you grow apart. And then you think about like trying to grow a business and how that impacts you as well, because no different than having a child. This is a living, breathing thing with a set of needs on its own. So you're changing, Jason's changing, the businesses are evolving. They're all problematic because they're all fucking problem factories. Um, how have you guys managed to maintain, uh, if not healthy, a productive relationship over the course of the past, let's call it 2 decades?